let's get ready to use our database in our app. And now we can write some data fetching and data mutating functions that take advantage of the database. But the one thing we want to do is, like I said, we want to sync the clerk user with the user that we're going to create in our database. So let's do that. Before we can do it, we actually have to write like a real schema. So let's do that. So back to the schema. Let's just keep working on this user. So we want the user to have a created at, and that's just going to be a date time type. And we can give it a default of now. So it's created whenever it got created. You can do an updated at, that's very similar. It has a date time type. I believe there's a updated at attribute here. So it'll automatically add that timestamp for us every time this gets updated, so we don't have to manually do it. And then, we can pretty much put whatever we want. I don't want all the information about a user that clerk has. That would just be hard to just keep that, because then it's like, well, what if they go, because clerk also allows a user to go change their account. So if they change their account on clerk, then now I got to write some logic to keep that in sync here too. I just want to keep it in sync on the initial sign up. I don't really care if they do all the other stuff. In fact, I would just rather just hit clerk's API as the source of truth to get information about my user. I just need to know what user it is. So really all I need is the ID that belongs to that clerk user and add it here. And now I can just ask clerk about this user, whatever I want to know about the user, versus copying all the data over and trying to keep that in sync. It sounds very brittle. It sounds like someone's job. It's like, that's the person on the team whose job is to keep the clerk and user in sync. Like that's a job. So I'm not doing it. We're just going to add the clerk ID. So I'm going to say clerk ID. That's a type string and it's unique. Only one user can have this clerk ID.
Can you make a quick comment about the at decorators we're using? Are those leveraging native functions to Prisma?
Yeah, so this is Prisma's proprietary language. I don't know if they have a name for it. I don't know if it's called like Prisma SDL or whatever. But yeah, it's their proprietary language. And all of these map to specific database functionalities. In fact, they have a chart that walks through all of it. Here we go. Yeah, so you can see how these map to like different things within the database and like what they're doing. And that's basically it. I think, so the Prisma team used to be like a GraphQL server as a service, but really what was cool about them is they built some really cool database functionality to help build that app. And I think they realized that like, oh wait, this database functionality that we built is a really cool product on its own. We should leverage that. So they also have a product that you can use, but if you use something like PlanetScale, you don't need the product that they have actually, because the product that they have helps you scale a database on serverless. But if you use PlanetScale, you don't need it. So PlanetScale is great. Good question though. Cool. Okay, so we have that. What else could we put on here? We could say, we could put email here if we want it. Let's do that. That way we can reference this somewhere in like the UI somewhere. Here you are. Here's your user email, whatever. That's also unique. And by the way, if you don't put a question mark on the end of this, that means it's required. Everything's required unless it has a question mark on it. So got email. And we can stop with the user for now. And now we're going to think about all the other models in our app and what we need to make. So the next one is going to be a journal entry. And I'm just going to copy these three things here because everything's pretty much going to have these three fields: an ID, a created at, and an updated at. And then from there, a journal entry has content. That's the actual content. It's a string. Because MySQL is a fixed width column database, it's going to hit a limit on how long that string can be. So to get around that, we can just do db.text or db.text. There we go. This is basically changing it to like full-blown text in the database and not like some fixed width char I don't know how you pronounce it. It's short for character, which is what it would be by default. If you don't know anything about MySQL, then don't listen to anything I just said. That this just means I want my string to be long. That's what this means. Okay, we got the content. What else does an entry have? Oh, it has the user that created. So we need a relationship here. I like to put my relationships up here. So to make a relationship, you just need two fields. You need the field in which you need a unique field that associates this entry with the thing you want to relate to. In this case, I'll just call it the user ID. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it owner ID. It doesn't matter. Creator. I'm just going to call it a user ID. Its type is a string because the type of a user ID is also a string. If the user ID type was int and you did the auto increment, then this would also be int for integer. You just got to make sure the type that you put for the relation is the same type that it is on the thing you're relating to. Type string, and then I can say at relation like this. And then I can say fields, which is an array. And then I can say references. So fields is basically just going to be the field that you want this relationship to tie into. So in this case, it'll be user ID, like so. And then the reference is like, what is the name of the field in which you're referencing? On the other model, in this case, it's ID. So I'm referencing ID, like that. Oh, I'm sorry, hold on. Forget what I just said. That goes on the next one, not this one. I'm like, wait, this doesn't look right. So actually, we can just change it right now. So instead of saying user ID right here, just call this user and give it a type of user, like that. And then you can make the user ID field, which is just type string. And you'll still get this error, which is expected. We'll talk about why this is the case. But that's how you set up the relationship on this side. So we're saying the user ID field on journal entry is going to reference the ID field on the user model. So user ID here references ID there. And it's freaking out because it's like, yeah, but you got to set up the relationship on the other side too. So let's go do that. We can actually just go back up to user, and you can call this whatever you want. I'll just call it entries. And it's going to be, it's a one-to-many relationship. A journal entry can have one user, but a user can have many entries. So it's going to be an array of journal entries like that. And then we get one more squiggly here, and this thing is basically saying, hey, relationship mode is Prisma. We're not going to generate these foreign keys for you. You need to do it yourself. It's a technical issue. Basically what they're saying is you just need to index that. So we can say, you can go all the way down to the bottom. We can say index, which is a function that takes an array. It has two @ signs in front of it. And you can say index the user ID, and that will solve that problem. But we'll actually probably make this unique because we'll have to query it, but we'll keep it indexed for now, and we'll come back and change it if we need to. Got our journal entry. The last thing we need to make, or at least one more thing. I don't know what else we're gonna make. Oh yeah, what's up? Yep.
So on line 31, you know, the references we know is looking for that value on the type that we've declared on 31. Does it check that? But the fields is inherently going to be referencing the model that we're defining this on?
Correct. Yeah. So the fields is only referencing a field that's on this model. So it's looking for something here with this name.
The self model.
Right. Exactly. And then yeah, the reference is like, okay, what is the name of the field on the reference that you want, that you're talking about? And that's called ID. So like if this was not called ID, like if it was like that, you can see it breaks immediately. It's like, there's nothing called that. What are you talking about? So